The Pit Press Podcast.
Reinholz launches from downtown. No. Van Horn, no. And that's it. New Mexico with him. Jimmy Thomas blocks. Gibson hustling down. He has some room. And he gets it. Oh, long good. Three. He got it. Oh, my goodness. Kendall Williams from 35 feet. For the win. Snell. Got it. He got it. Wow. With 1.8 seconds remaining. And New Mexico's going to dribble out the clock. The Lobos three-peat as conference tournament champions. Kendall Williams fires the ball into the air, but New Mexico wins it this afternoon 64-58 over San Diego State, and the Lobos claim the Mountain West Conference's automatic bid into the NCAA tournament. Welcome to another episode of the Pit Press Podcast. My name is Ryan Tamori, and I'm coming to you from lovely Boise, Idaho. Not Boise, Boise, Idaho. I'm going to the UNM at Boise State game tonight. I know that really doesn't help the context of timing, but I'll be there. It's a bucket list thing. I've always wanted to go. Not sure how the game is going to be because the Lobos are at the time. The line opened up at 26-point underdogs. So it's a cool campus, cool place. Checked it off the bucket list. We're not really here to talk football, though. We're here to talk basketball. And as always, I'm joined by a Lobo fan since 1970 and the voice of Western New Mexico. He's down in Silver City right now. Hey, we're spanning the country. Where in the world is Ed Nunez? Ed Nunez, how are you doing?
Doing great, Ryan.
And my business partner in this endeavor, one Mr. Erik Malton. Senor, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. Good morning, guys. Let's talk some Lobo hoops.
And I'm going to do this on purpose because he's joining us because he was at the game all the way from Northern California. Two-time state all-state offensive lineman. One, Richard Thompson. He was at the game. That's why he's joining us here, and he knows his basketball. I thought you were crashing the glass by joining us here. So, Richard Thompson, what's going on, man?
Your favorite Lobo fan from the Bay Area, Richard Thompson. Thanks for having me on, guys. I'm excited to be here. This show has just grown over the last year, and I just wanted to give a shout out to you guys for the work you've done on the show, the branding, the website, just the quality and everything the last year has really gone up. So I'm excited to be on here and talk some hoops.
You're one of the bigger, these two guys. So three of the guys here that I'm on with this episode are absolute huge basketball fans. Hey, Ed, Rick's a Laker fan too. So you're in good company.
All right. Love it.
I'm going to start because I'm probably getting in trouble on this episode even though I always say that. The game wasn't as bad as the broadcast. I was very disappointed in a private college in California with that quality. You couldn't hear anything. I had to be at the Albuquerque airport on Friday morning for a 5:15 a.m. flight. So an 8 o'clock an 8 o'clock Mountain Time start to be up at 3:30 sucked, but I watched the game. So I'm trying to watch it. I got ready. I got finished packing, and I was trying to figure out why the sound was terrible. I thought it was on my end. Well, I turned up my sound like 100, and it was absolute garbage. And then because the sound was so bad, it cut out, and then it blasted that Sauvage Johnny Depp commercial where he's just like railing on the guitar. This is the first time in history, and it's probably a bad joke, that was worse than the actual Lobo performance. So I'm just going to say that. I'm still high on this team. I think I didn't say it on the podcast, and it's probably a moot point now. I kind of said it off the record. I personally thought chemistry would be a problem. This was still a tough test. I still think the skies are the limit. As we record this, San Diego State got beat in Provo to BYU last night. I think they blew a lead. I didn't watch the game, but I saw what happened. The season's still young. Remember, they went to Moraga, 6-7 games down the road last year. And we talked about it, man. I thought maybe St. Mary's had a bullseye. They were looking at this game. Randy Bennett had them ready to go. I think St. Mary's is as good as advertised. That team is very good. Rick, we'll circle back to you because you were at the game. Eric, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on the game?
Oh, they came out slow. Just a lot of defensive breakdowns. I think you hit the nail on the head with the chemistry, right? I don't think these guys have spent a lot of time together, so the rhythm wasn't necessarily there. They kind of got stuck in places, didn't really know assignments or roles necessarily, but they were playing without House. So I think they might get a little bit of a pass there. The energy and kind of like the on-ball craziness that we saw in that game against Texas Southern wasn't there either. It kind of took them a while to get acclimated and kind of turn up the heat a little bit. This game came down to defensive breakdowns, not being able to rebound the ball, some offensive struggles. I'm pretty much eating my words now because I predicted that this Lobo team would have won or at least fared better on the preview. But we did not see that. I think this team still has plenty of things to work on, and I think Patino and co know that.
I'm not singling you out. We have to hold ourselves accountable on this show. I have to hold myself accountable. So if and when I get anything wrong, here it is, man. I'm sorry.
This is going to be kind of
This is from our previous episode.
Bad matchup for St. Mary's, and that's just my opinion. I know this is a UNM heavy podcast. I'm trying to be as unbiased as I can, but when you're looking at from like pace of game kind of play, like I played on a team where you had a lot of guards that like to run up and down. Like that's not St. Mary's game. If this turns into a track meet, like UNM might win by 10 or more, right? I think you can kind of throw that first game out the window because I don't know really who that team was. I just know St. Mary's is really good and effective with taking care of the ball and putting teams to sleep with their offense and then playing good defense.
Just
I was 50% right. And I said if it turns into a track meet, which it did not. So
yeah, you totally weren't wrong.
I'll own it. I'm still high on the Lobos.
I said on this podcast when we started at that Boise State, the 2022-2023, I thought the Boise State Broncos were the best team in the conference. There was a little team called the Aztecs that got to they were national runners up. So I was wrong. Ed, your thoughts on the game?
Well, there's a lot of points to be made about that, and the chemistry issue that you brought up is one of them. You're getting some new players on the floor now, Eric. You know this as well as anyone. So do you, Rick. You played for Damian Segura. I understand, and I know Coach Segura real well. When it comes to pick and roll, we have to communicate. Are we hedging? Are we showing? What are we doing? Are we staying with our man? And there's the other thing is St. Mary's runs. Look at the floor balance they had and the way they move the basketball. So there's a reason why there wasn't an up-tempo game because they didn't allow it to be because they're better than Texas Southern. They're ranked 23rd in the nation. They've been to how many straight in NCAA postseason tournaments. Randy Bennett is a darn good coach. And Ryan, you said this too, that they had this game circled. You're darn right they did. They sure did. The other thing that we can say, yes, House wasn't there. Losing Morris Udeze that's a big loss to even Josiah Alec. In the paper, Nelly Jr. Joseph had 11 points and 13 rebounds. To me, it's a little bit misleading. He did get the rebounds, but there was key rebounds New Mexico did not get. There's a stretch there where Coach Patino played Sebastian Forsling and Mustafa Amzil together, and neither one of them they're getting forced underneath the basket. The big man for St. Mary's is walking them under the basket, and it's hard to get that rebounds when you're that far into the basket. So that's what I saw. You're not wrong about the chemistry, Ryan. Those things take time to build, as far as team trust and where we're going to be on the floor. That's why the other thing is it's hard to circle a game that early in the season, but with the schedule being the way it was, you mentioned that, Ryan, you thought it was a must win. It's still early. I still think New Mexico could be a good team, but they're not on the level of the St. Mary's, period. They're not. That's just my opinion.
Rick Thompson was at the game, and it wasn't as bad as this commercial. Just blasting in my bedroom. Although Johnny Depp can shred Dior. I even sent the entire Born in the Wild, a magic alchemy of woods and spices, rare, intoxicating, the soul of Sauvage, Elixir Dior. I sent that to Stephen. I sent that to our friend Stephen Pena. Rick, I don't know how it was in person, and I have two questions for you. The first one is, I think it's University Credit Union Pavilion. How cool of a place is that to see a game, given that they've got this mystique now? They've got this aura. They're a good basketball program. We've said it many times. They were picked to win the West Coast Conference over Gonzaga. So number one, what is it like to see a basketball game there at St. Mary's College in California? And number two, your thoughts on the game.
Sure. Let me just paint the picture. You're coming 20 minutes out of Oakland, which is not the most beautiful place in the world. You break through into a hilly environment. You roll through the trees into this beautiful campus that looks like an enlarged St. Pius. It was getting dark at night, so I don't know exactly how many buildings it had, but we literally parked in a dormitory parking lot, and then you walk across campus to the game, and everyone's doing the same. So it's a really cool environment. It holds about 3,500. So when you walk in there, it's packed to the gills, and you feel like you're in maybe in Capital or Espanola playing in a sold-out game up there. So it was a pretty cool environment. They got an outdoor venue area where you can eat outside, but they just have a small area inside to eat. So you feel like you're in a high school, and the crowd was pumped from the beginning. The energy shot from the beginning. You know, it was 13-2 after about 4 minutes. Mahaney knocked down everything in the first half. I think you guys all hit on some good points. The Lobos, the first 5 minutes of the game, they're going through the motions on offense. They're all in the right position. They're all more focused on being in the right position than even looking at the hoop. I don't know how many times Toppin or Nelly caught the ball at the high post, and they didn't even think about turning to look at the hoop. They were just more focused on, oh, I need to move the ball here. So you definitely saw the lack of chemistry that you guys are speaking about. Guys are in their spots, but they don't know what they should be doing with the ball yet. And I don't think guys know their role yet. And especially with House out, that was evident. Dent, you know, he did a good job of pushing the ball, but Ed and I think Erik made a good point. They couldn't turn it into a track meet because St. Mary's controlled the game that first half. And Ed really hit a good point on Nelly. He was out there, his body was out there, but I didn't see his soul out there. I mean, there was balls flying by his head that he could have grabbed, and he wasn't, I don't know, he was like 2 feet from the hoop and couldn't finish on multiple occasions, it felt like, in the first few minutes. So the first 5 minutes just sucked the life out of every Lobo fan and the whole team, and it was even pretty much after that point, but the atmosphere was great. I won't get into all the details, and you know, I know we got a lot to talk about, but you guys have all hit it so far. Chemistry was lacking, and you could see it in their face. There was frustration on both defense and offense.
The one thing I will say is, for Nelly, what I saw against Texas Southern, and then what I saw against St. Mary's, this is not the MAC. This is not the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. This is a conference with teams getting top 25 votes. They're going on the road to hostile environments like that. They got to go to Viejas. They got to come up to aka Taco Bell Arena, which I wish it was still Taco Bell Arena here in Boise. You got to go to Moby. There's tough places. I'm starting to wonder. I think maybe there's a reason Pitino, as I call him Patino, that Rick Pitino did not take him to St. John's. Maybe there's a reason here. Again, I still think he's been with the team 3.5 weeks. I get that. I still think there's time for him to grow, and I still think he's like a 15-10 kind of guy per night. Rick, I'll keep with you just on this question. You're high on Donovan Dent. He had 15. He seemed to be the only player there. You know, he did last year. He's like, I'm from California. I love it. What did you think of his performance and the 15 points?
I think he played well. He was trying to step up kind of into a leadership role and communicate with the other guys and try to, I think, fill House's void, because I think we know Mashburn isn't the most vocal leader, and Mashburn had a really tough game. So I'm still high on Dent. It's going to be interesting to see how they use him when House comes back, and if they're going to start 3 guards or if they're going to go with a different lineup for the rest of the season. And one thing, a reason they couldn't really get their offense going without, I don't know if it's because House wasn't there or they just got down early, is their ball movement stopped after the first 5 minutes and they went into heavy pick and roll game. And you could tell that Donovan just doesn't have the chemistry yet with Nelly on that ball screen like he did with Udeze or Alec last year. So I think that'll come, and you guys are right. I think Nelly he hasn't had much time. He has the skills, but right now, nobody had chemistry together. You know, Dent and Mashburn were the only ones that really looked like they knew where the other guy was going to be all night. So I'm big on him. It's just going to be interesting to see how all these pieces fit. I think minutes are going to need to be redistributed at some point, but we don't know what those roles are yet.
Ed, I'm going to ask this to you, this question to you, and I always mention on the show, you know, you're the Charles Oakley, the bad boys of the late 80s with the Pistons. I don't know. That's just how I envision your style of play. I think much talk has been about, you know, Nelly and Mustafa Amzil not finding themselves. Sebastian Forsling, when he's on the floor, is struggling. What are your thoughts about him? And he seems to have a tough time just rebounding.
Here's the thing. Okay, against Texas Southern on Monday, we saw him pick and roll, slide to the basket, finish. That was encouraging to me because we hadn't seen a lot of that last year in possessions that he was in. If he was in for four possessions, he hurt New Mexico on 2 of them. I looked at his body when we went to practice in June, and he lost some weight. There's no question about it. He's still not strong. Not strong. At 7 feet, we say this, you know, I get this from Coach Ray Rodriguez, the former great coach at Cibola and Highland. It doesn't do us any good to be big unless we play big. Against that 7-footer, that's where you need him to step up. There's a point in there where Texas St. Mary's got 4 straight rebounds underneath the basket. You got to carve out space. You've got to block out, and you've got to rebound. And that's not his role. It's obvious. He's not that big 7-footer is going to get it. We need rebounds, right? To end the defensive possession, to end the offensive possession, we've got to rebound. And he's not that guy. You know, he's I don't know what his role is, but I'm surprised he saw some action in the second half because I thought he really hurt New Mexico when he was in. You know, and the other guy we thought that might play a little bit was Isaac Mushila. He's 6'4". He's 6'4". So it was a good point made. Rick made a good point. By minutes might have to be redistributed. They might have to redistribute them every game. Jamal Baker, what's his role? But going back to Forsling, I don't want to get off topic. I don't know what, you know, again, 7 feet, 7 foot. You know, he came in here last year. It was a little bit of a disappointment. I looked at, he did get in shape. Looked like he had worked on his body a little bit. But I don't see the strength needed to hold your position in the post. It's really important. If you're out there at that size, we need you to rebound. And there's taps and rebounds going up and down, and you're not getting it, and we need that possession. I thought it hurt New Mexico a lot. I really did. And Amzil's not a rebounder. Hunter Green said this. You're lucky if you get 4 rebounds a game from him.
This is a yes or no question to Ed. Do you think the Lobos are tough enough down the stretch and then heading into Mountain West Conference play?
Mike, for me?
Yeah, Ed.
Right now, I don't. No, I do not.
We didn't even talk about the elephant in the room. Like, what was it, about 45 minutes, maybe to an hour to the game? It was understood that Jalen House was not going to be playing. It was a hip. I thought maybe he should have sat out against Texas Southern. A guy I'm really high on, Jamal Baker Jr., he's struggling. Erik, I'm going to ask you, how important was missing House? No spark plug, no ball handler, no defensive disruptor. Your thoughts on him? Maybe had it been a different, I don't like to be woulda, coulda, shoulda guy, but how different of a game do you think Jalen House would have made this?
Oh, I think it's pretty clear. He's the heart and soul of this team, right? He's the spark plug, primary ball handler. He's like the snake's head right? Like he's the one that's kind of at the top of the key, coming up with a lot of steals, creating havoc, defensive disruptor. In last year's matchup against St. Mary's, he had 6 steals. Like that definitely impacted the game. And I don't know like what the matchup would have been. It's probably more of like a collective team defensive effort. But House probably would have been on Mahaney, right? Like trying to get up in and on him, like forcing the ball out of his hands. Like we saw plenty of times where Mahaney was seeing like 2, 3, even triple staggered screens where he was basically just running havoc and having any shot that he wanted on the floor. And so I think just on the defensive side alone, having House kind of just create this chaos would have definitely slowed down St. Mary's a little bit. I don't have any doubt there. But on the offensive side, we just missed the rhythm, right? Having an additional weapon. He's so shifty and fast and really hard to defend one-on-one. He gets in the lane. He can shoot from the outside. I mean, let's face it. Without him on the floor, the Lobos didn't have many outside weapons. What did they make? 2 threes? 2 or 3 threes? I know Dent hit one. Mushila hit one on that 4-point play. But other than that, there's not much chemistry. I think they lack that big time.
This is a team that went 4 of 12 from the 3-point line on Thursday night. That's kind of not what I expected. Rick, when you can't find yourself get into a rhythm, and this team has an off shooting night at 37%. I don't care if you're at the NBA level. I don't care if you're James Harden. That's probably a terrible joke. At the high school level or even Division I college level, how hard is it to be off your rhythm and shoot under 40% like that on the road in a hostile environment?
It's extremely difficult, and I saw it in person. I think what contributed to the pain, though, was the free throw deficiency, right? Mashburn, 0 free throws. We got outshot at the free throw line, I think, by 10 plus. Nobody was going to the hoop, and when they weren't drawing fouls. So Erik was hitting on some good points. The offense was just out of sync without House. No one was going to the hoop. It looks like Amzo wants to shoot the 3 a lot, but he was hesitating. I think once he knows his role is just to play defense and shoot corner threes, he'll be okay. He's not going to rebound, as Ed mentioned. I didn't see him playing much defense either. So if they pick up the defense, him and the others, that'll turn into offense, right? They did create a good amount of turnovers, but they didn't get a lot of points off the turnovers. I really liked True Washington's defense. He created 2 steals in the first half and kind of got them back in the flow of the game when he came off the bench. So I like his potential. But when you're shooting the ball bad and not going to the hoop, it's just a recipe to lose. And you're saying they shot the 3 ball bad. The problem is they don't shoot the 3 ball. They shot 13 threes. They need to shoot over 20 threes. If you look at what was their rating last year, they were like 130th or something in the amount of threes they shoot a game. That's not the game today. I know House can shoot. I know Mash and the other guards can shoot. So I don't know why they're not letting them fly. Mashburn's first year here at UNM, he averaged 3.5 threes a game. Last year, it went down to 2.5. Through the first few games this year, it's like 1.5. So I don't know what Patino's doing, but these guys need to shoot threes. That's the game these days. That's how you fix the offense.
I think you make a good point with just shooting more threes, right? Like, but when did they really have any opportunities to shoot threes? Where St. Mary's is really good at defending screens, right? They do a really good job of hedging out and forcing the ball handler to kind of force out, right? Like he can't really turn that corner, and then they switch back. So like they're really good and really disciplined on the defensive side. So yeah, I think they do need to emphasize a little bit more focus on getting some open looks. But I mean, they kind of ran into the buzzsaw with a really good, disciplined, physical, big defensive team that kind of took that away.
Coach Richard Patino just tweeted out, shout out to @St. Mary's Hoops. They are tough, well-coached, disciplined program. We can learn so much from this game. I don't think it's probably one of the – it's true. They probably will take a lot away from that game, and he will get it to quote to quote Mike Loxley here, he's going to get it corrected. One of the guys that I was high on, another transfer that I was really big on, and Ed, I'm going to pose this question to you, and what you saw out of his game was Mustafa Amzil. He looks, I felt like he should be in the paint. I think what you guys were saying, and I say this all the time on this podcast, I'm not an X's and O's guy. I just love watching. I love betting. I love the history of it. But what did you see out of his game? Because he, just like Nelly, he looks completely lost.
I think Rick mentioned that. I think we saw that against even New Mexico Highlands and then Texas Southern. He got a dunk, and I always say that shooter, when they see the ball go through the net, that helps you. It helps your confidence. You're like, okay, you relax a little bit, and you breathe. And you're like, okay, I made a shot, whatever it is, free throw, whatever, layup. But I think that he's still uncertain. And he can shoot. There's no question about it. He is not a physical player. He's 6'9". He doesn't look. You mentioned Rick Mahorn and Charles Oakley. I was 6'1", but you know what? I like contact, man. I like to bang. I did, but I didn't have. My brother was 6'4.5". My brother had a much bigger body than me. My nephew was 6'4.5". They didn't like to bang as much as I did. So I look at him, and I think he's a finesse physical player. He's like Rick mentioned. He likes that corner three. He can shoot. There's no doubt about it. You're going to see better games from Mustafa Amzil. There's no question about it. He just hasn't, as we've all alluded to, hasn't figured out, and a lot of the guys haven't either. What's their role? What do you need me to do? So I think once that happens and he relaxes a little bit, you'll see him have some 10 to 12-point games. Yeah, and like Hunter Green said, you'll see him get more than 4 rebounds. That's not something I could tell he shies away from. And they need him to rebound because he's 6'9". So I think that's what we're looking at right now, Ryan. I think he's still a player that's still kind of uncertain about what his role is.
One of the things we haven't talked about yet, and I'm big on, we are UNM centric. I know we don't have to explain ourselves. I think the Pit is awesome, and I'll plead the fifth on a lot of other things, especially coming up to Boise and seeing Boise State campus and what Chris Peterson did with 3 Fiesta Bowl wins and the amount of money that pours into football, especially when you can win at that level and you're winning bowl games like that. You've seen it here, and I was talking with my friend who's showing me around the city. But where was I going with this? But anyway, giving credit where credit is due to St. Mary's. And I probably did it earlier in the segment, but we didn't really touch on it. Aiden Mahaney is a point guard to watch, not just on this part of the country, just not in the West Coast Conference, but nationally. He had 20 at the half. He finished with 25. I would be a little bit bigger on the assists and rebounds, but I think when you're filling it and you hit 5, you shoot 50% from 3 and you hit 5 of those, man, that's a great performance. And he's the backbone of their defense. I knew that going into this game. From what I saw, and I know we primarily focus on the West Coast Conference and UNM, what I saw, they might be, I haven't seen much out of Gonzaga. They might be the team to beat on the West Coast. The one thing, and he was fun to watch, and Erik, I'll throw this your way with 2 things. Your thoughts on his performance, Aiden Mahaney, and I love his name because it's spelled the same way as my child, Aidan. But was his performance, and I think another thing that we can take away out of this with much positivity, and you see it online, socially, on Twitter or the X or Elon's forum, is there were, and we've talked to Nick Lorenzen of Mid-Major Madness, but there were like Rothstein and there were other high, big profile national guys saying, hey, Chicago and Carolina sucks. You should put on ESPN. You should put on ESPN Plus at 10 o'clock Eastern, because this is a premier, not just mid-major game. This is a premier college basketball game in Moraga between St. Mary's and UNM. I think the one positive thing, and this isn't a Colorado thing, is that UNM, again, basketball-wise, Pitino has risen that. It seems to be on the level that we want it to be at. Obviously not the outcome he wanted and we wanted and Lobo fans wanted, but I think it's good exposure for the program. And it shows that even though last year with, that undefeated start, the national ranking. Like there's prominence that Richard Pitino has built back up with UNM basketball. And I love that. But with that long-winded bull junk that I was saying there, what did you think of Aiden Mahaney's performance, Erik, and then the national notoriety that we're getting?
Aiden Mahaney's tough, man. He's I might be over crediting him here, but he reminds me of a young Jimmer Fredette. Just his ability to score at real creative. He finds his way to get in the lane, and the offense that St. Mary's runs is completely designed to get him open, get the ball in his hands. He was seeing triple screens. He was coming off double screens to get the ball. He was penetrating. He's a really good passer too. So like, he's not just a good shooter, good scorer, but he's a really good basketball player with a high level of IQ. I think St. Mary's goes as far as this kid can get him. He's that kind of player. He might be a bit under the radar because they're not in a Power 5 conference. He's not getting the national notoriety that he should be. But I mean, the more and more that people are going to see this guy play, he's that good. He finished 23 or 25 this game, 20 in the first half, and it was almost like a quiet 22. Like you didn't. Holy crap! Like this guy has 20 points already. I think Ed texted us like, I can't believe he has 20 points already. But yeah, you leave that guy open, you give him a little bit of space, like he's going to knock down some open shots. And one of the replays that we just played on the podcast now was like the defensive focus. I don't think was necessarily as good as it should have been. Like the Lobos need to know exactly who's on the floor, who they need to be guarding, and True Washington came off of him just a little bit to double the post down low. You can't come off a shooter like that because he's just going to kill you all night. And that's what happened. And I don't think he scored that many points in the second half. He didn't need to. But that's a tough player, man. And high basketball IQ, good passer, elite scorer. Yeah, this team's no joke.
I just had something on Mahaney too. He's actually a local kid from Lafayette, which is right where north of Moraga. He started on whatever high school he played at there since he was a freshman, led him to a state title when he was a freshman, and obviously went on to be a top recruited player, got offers from Stanford, Cal, some of the Ivy League schools, but he chose to stay home and play there at St. Mary's. So he could have went to a bigger school. He is that talented, and seeing him in person, I was laughing at first. He's as skinny as Tamari was in high school. And I'm like, how is this guy moseying down the lane, multiple pump fakes? He kind of looked like a miniature Luka or something, the way he moved. He doesn't have the step back game, but in the paint, he had all the floaters, all the patience in the world. And he knocked down a three and screamed in Jalen House's face on the bench to kick off the game. So he has some heart, and watch out for him the rest of the year. He's going to be fun to watch.
You answered my next question, which was, what was it to like to? I always reference the Jimmer performance in the semifinals of the 2011 Mountain West Conference tournament, where Jimmer just went off and scored 55 against UNM, and that I mean, to see something like that in person. I was going to quote, they let a player in a college game have 20 points at half. And thank you for the compliment about him being as skinny as I was, because man, I was a twig. I looked like that stick bug in the Bug's Life that was voiced by David Hyde Pierce from Frasier. In high school, I was that skinny. That's an extreme reference, but that's always how I looked. I mean, I'm going to quote Richard Pitino here from the Almanac. The guys, the almanac.com, it's all about college basketball, cbbalmanac.com. And I love this quote. And that's one of the things I do absolutely like about Richard Pitino is he's very candid and he doesn't hold back. And the quote, and we talked about it earlier in the season, a couple months ago, that the defense wasn't good. And this is Rick Pitino's quote: "We don't need to be great, but we just can't suck again defensively like we did last year," end quote. I don't know. He's spot on defensively. And I don't know if I touched on this, so if it's repetitive, I understand, but we were talking about Aiden Mahaney scoring those points. Ed, what does this team have to do differently to be better defensively in your eyes?
You look at the team they played, and I think Rick makes the great point. So did Erik about Mahaney. So did you. Mahaney is a great, well, for all the reasons we mentioned. He's a very smart point guard. Think about the reads he made against the Lobos. He made almost all the right reads, and then when they backed off of him, he nails the three. So I think their schedule call is not going to be that difficult. I've got, I believe, Texas A&M and who do they have? Arlington next at Pitt on Thursday.
UT Arlington.
So I think UT Arlington. So I think every game you have to improve. You have to practice the things that Erik and Rick were talking about: hedging, communicating. Talk a lot of talk on defense. They've got the athleticism. This is a team that has the tools and the talent to play good defense. They were taken apart, and just remember one thing: by number 23 team. Look at the way that team's coached. We mentioned the way they play defense. We mentioned the floor balance, the way they move the ball, the way they run their offense. Again, we're Lobo homers. I know I'm more probably, since 70 you say that. That's true. New Mexico, let me say it again, is not on that level. It's not. But they can improve in the games, coming up. There's going to be some games here at the Pit. That always helps. The Pit energy will help them. But you have to practice. You have to have good defensive coaches. One of the things Patino said that was one of the knocks on him last year was the defense. We saw it improve against Texas Southern. That's one game. When they went against a better team, it didn't show out. But I've got hope that it's a young season. Practice. Rick and Erik will tell you that. They play for two coaches, man. And Rick, I know I want to belabor the point. Damian Segura believed in defense, rarely played zone defense until later, in his career Pius. Now he's at San Diego Prep. That guy was a man-to-man guru all over the floor, man. So I think that's what it's going to take, Ryan, is more practice, more communication, more chemistry, more time together on the floor, and you'll see a better defensive unit, I believe.
One of the things I wanted to do was bring up our Twitter asking, hey, Lobo fan, I was in the air somewhere over Raton and the Colorado border. I paid for internet on Southwest, and people would probably be like, you're crazy. I tweeted out early Friday morning, early in the morning, that, what were your thoughts on the game last night? Because it was a late game. Most people were probably already in bed. I make this joke, and I did steal it from a YouTuber. Be funny. I'm offended when the joke doesn't land. It's not a Lobo homer thing here. Got this tweet from Billy Bag O' Donuts. Definitely playing in the national championship game. The hype around Nelly was right. Ewing, Walton, O'Neal type big. That was fantastic. This gentleman writes, meanwhile, ESPN continues to nationally broadcast college women basketball games while these quality matchups are relegated to stream paywalls. It's asinine not going there, pleading the fifth. We are soft and don't attack the rim. This is up your alley, Rick. We are soft and don't attack the rim or rebound with any intensity. Nelly and Amzil, misspelled Amzil, should give the money. I didn't read this until now. Sorry. We are soft and don't attack the rim or rebound with any intensity. Nelly and Amzil should give the money back and leave. Wow. Tired of excuses on why we can't get things done. We didn't even compete last night. Zero energy. It's one thing to loss. I think he meant lose. Another to lose without energy. And then somebody said, wonder if Fanta already has changed his final four. I don't think, and Rick, I'll throw this your way. That was just a very Rick, no intensity on defensive rebounding. It's amazing how much, as much as I love college football and where I'm at with a school that has built a West Coast, had built a West Coast empire with college football, and now their basketball team is really good. Just about how the lack of talk we get on football, but we mentioned Lobo basketball there, and the Twitter blows up. I would say, and I'm going to ask this to all three of you, but I'll start with Rick. I don't think the season's doomed because you can still run through the Mountain West. It's still very early. I'm not hitting the panic button yet. And we don't know what St. Mary's is going to do. They could completely fall apart. I don't think they are. I think they're very well coached. I think they're a very good team. But I thought that this would be clearly the committee didn't care last year. But I thought that win at St. Mary's was a win on the road that would have kind of boosted them into the tournament. But I'm not hitting the panic button yet. There's a lot of basketball. We are at November 11th. Rick, just your thoughts. It's not the hit. It's not there's, I'm sure you would agree. This team, it does have a lot of talent. It's not time to hit the panic button yet, right?
I agree. And Patino even said after the game he knew that this was a risk scheduling this game. He put it out there even though he knew he had all these new pieces. He was hoping that it would give him a whatever it is, a top tier 1 win. So I think it's good experience either way. This season is far from over. It's just beginning. Everyone needs to relax. All these players will fit into their roles once they get into it. It's going to take some time, though. I think by the time conference play comes around, everyone's going to be more comfortable and will be one of the top 2-3 teams in the conference. Definitely not time to panic. I think it's just because Lobo football's so bad. We've been anticipating this basketball team with all the new pieces, and I think the talent is there, but it's just going to take some time, and we're not going to go undefeated, obviously. So be ready for I think a up and down season, but with a winning record and probably top 3 finish in the conference.
Erik, same question to you.
No, I don't think the season's doomed. I think it's just very early, and they just need more time together. I mean, I don't know how many minutes Nelly saw, but he's been here, 2.5, almost 3 weeks now. We just got to be patient with it. I know we're in season already. He was a late arrival. They need to develop a deeper chemistry on both sides of the basketball, right? Like understand their roles. I think these guys, you can't just roll a basketball out there and hope for the best. I know we talked about Mzil, right? Mzil's still trying to find his role on the team. Is he going to play more inside? I think right now he probably wants to play more on the outside, but where the Lobos need the help is on the inside and rebounding. So, like, adjustments do need to be made on that front, and roles need to be established. Chemistry still needs to be developed. And then the big glaring question is how healthy is House, and when can we expect him back? Those hip flexors are, I'm not sure what happened, hip pointer. I'm not sure how long that takes to come back from, but is it going to be one of those things where it's going to be nagging him all season and some pain he might have to play through? Like, we don't know that yet. None of that's really been released to the public, but I think there's still a lot of unknowns. But what I do know is that the things I just mentioned, right? Chemistry still needs to develop. They still need time together. They still need to identify their role, and they need to build a personality. Like, how tough is this team going to be when they do start to face some adversity? Like, who's going to show up? Where's the heart going to come from?
Ed, to you.
No, of course it's not it's way too early to push the panic button for sure, but a lot of people have this game circled, and they did because the Lobos beat them last year. They're thinking, hey, but the other thing is this, remember, it was Richard Pitino himself. I know I keep saying this, but he's the one that said this is one of the best recruiting classes in Lobo history. He's the one to put it out there. When you say stuff around like that in Albuquerque, or to Lobo fans like myself that have been around a long time, people's expectations start like, oh, gosh, wow, that sounds great. You got to prove it. You have to prove it. They had a good season last year that ended in an NIT loss, which we hadn't been in the postseason in a long time. So when you say that, expectations jump up to like, okay, we should get an NCAA tournament berth for sure this year. So I think definitely not time to push the panic button. There's a lot of times we mentioned develop, practice, chemistry, things like that. We'll see in the coming weeks. But Coach Pitino kind of put that bullseye in the program himself with that statement, in my opinion. But there's still plenty of time to do, as Rick and Erik said, to develop a winning program both on the offensive and defensive side. A lot of games left to play.
Very quickly on football to Rick Thompson, and it's a short answer. Do you take Boise State in the points today?
What's the weather like?
It's actually very nice here. It was when I left Albuquerque, it was snowing at 5 o'clock in the morning. It was 42 degrees here at like 7 a.m. It's a nice day. I don't expect it to change.
I'm gonna have to say the Lobos cover today. They got it.
All right, perfect. Hey, Rick, all the way from Northern California. I had to give you the stone cold intro for breaking the glass there. Hey, man, I really enjoyed it. We might have to have you on more of these, but I wanted you on, and we're trying to do our own podcast, but life happens. because you were at the game, and I know you're just like these two guys. Your X's and O's with basketball are phenomenal. So Richard Thompson, all the way from Northern California, thank you for joining the show.
Thanks, everyone.
And Erik and Ed, hey, appreciate it. And we will we'll try to get you, the Lobos don't.
We'll get a preview out. We'll get a preview out for UT Arlington.
Sure, perfect. Not doing it today, but we appreciate everybody for listening. So everybody, hey, have a good weekend. All right, appreciate it, guys.